in order to have a successful recruiting process, there's multiple things we could do to attract, hire, and recruit top talent, not just posting on a job board and hoping the best applicant raises their hand and says they're interested in our roles.
Tips from Trestle is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale, Vizox AI, and Clark Pro. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Welcome to this episode of Tips from Trestle. Today I'm talking to Corey Fein. Corey is a senior market strategist at Hireology, where he helps organizations streamline recruitment and hiring processes to attract top talent. With expertise in optimizing employment branding and simplifying application workflows, Corey emphasizes actionable strategies to reduce candidate drop-offs and improve hiring outcomes. He has shared his insights on platforms like Bridge the Gap and has presented to leading organizations such as BMW NA and Toyota Eastern Region, highlighting the critical role of user-friendly systems and proactive hiring strategies in workforce success. Corey, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thanks, Aaron. Really excited to be here and diving into the content for your viewers.
So in going through your introduction there, you obviously worked with, BMW North America, Toyota, but we're talking about senior living. And so clearly there's at least a little bit of a story.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about your background and how you wound up finding yourself working with the senior living industry.
Absolutely. So you're right. It's quite a difference on paper, what looks like different organizations. I found myself joining Hireology in 2013 originally. Spent about 8 years with the organization. Obviously been back. So I've been with the company now for about 8.5 years in total. And really where we flourish and where we have found our success as an organization is helping businesses where people are the product and they are a multi-location organization. So if you think of, again, you mentioned retail automotive, senior living, right? We have multiple locations in senior living spread across the central region. That's where Hireology really helps organizations elevate the way they try and attract, hire, and recruit top talent. And then for me personally, I'm passionate about those organizations where people are the product. At the end of the day, our ability to attract, hire, and recruit CNAs, RNs, great staff for our kitchen, and make sure that our consumers and our residents have an excellent experience interacting with us and everything they do. That's what I'm passionate about. And that's where senior living really comes into play.
I love that approach and thinking about like you guys work the best with industries that focus on people. And then that's our business to a T, right? And so how did Hireology get into working with senior living operators? Was it something you guys stumbled into or was it a deliberate push?
Sure. Yeah, it was certainly deliberate, right? When we look at the market and we understand the types of organizations that are multi-location and owned and operated by a central owner, think of a traditional franchise network, think of a car dealership model, and then think of senior housing, facility-based care, right? So by design, we intentionally went after and built our solution to work with those organizations. And that's where senior living fits that model really well.
And I'm curious, with having been with Hireology for, you said 8.5 years now, you've obviously seen the good and the bad that organizations do when it comes to recruitment, retention, hiring, all of those good things. And so I'd love to start with like, what are some of the more common mistakes that you've seen, maybe senior living organizations, but organizations in general, I guess. What are the kinds of mistakes you've seen them make when they're recruiting for operational roles? And how can maybe we try to avoid those as we evolve our process?
Yeah. There's three common themes I typically see in the market, especially in the senior living space, that organizations experience pitfalls, right? First, it's understanding who has the power in the hiring process.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is senior living operators need to realize that everything they do in the interview and selection process should be applicant-centric. Everything should be focused around, is this the best experience for the applicant? Because the interview process is typically the best that candidate's ever going to be. And if you're not your best, they're going to look somewhere else. So what you need to realize is, yes, it certainly feels like the labor market is shrinking on us, especially for skilled work. We need to put the applicant first. And that kind of coincides with the second thing, and that's speed to hire. We need to understand that time is everything in the interview process. And that's how long does it take us to reach back out to an applicant after they apply? And that's first call, first email, first text message. Our research shows if it's longer than 12 hours, you've lost that applicant. They're no longer interested in your role.
Yeah, that's quick turnaround.
Absolutely. But think of what we do for a lead. If a potential resident raises their hand and says they're interested in a tour, how quickly do we reach back out to that prospective resident?
Pretty fast. I'm pretty fast.
Right. So treat we've already built those KPIs in one aspect of our business. Just model that for our people. And then the third thing that we typically see as a challenge is most organizations over-index on one applicant source. So what I mean by that is we say we have a recruiting process because we post our jobs on Indeed. Now, Indeed's great. They're a great partner of ours. However, in order to have a successful recruiting process, there's multiple things we could do to attract, hire, and recruit top talent, not just posting on a job board and hoping the best applicant raises their hand and says they're interested in our roles.
All three of those are things that I've experienced operationally. I remember working in a community or with a community, and the location was a struggle to hire to. It was a little bit further of a drive for people. And it was very much that it was, get them when they come in, like hit all the boards, like do all you can. And I love that those are the three things that you guys focus on. The other piece of that, which is very intuitive to me, but may not be for all of the listeners, is the way you describe the comparison to prospecting for new residents. And so when we were putting together our notes for the conversation today, you kind of hinted at that and you referred to it as the marketing funnel. And so for our listeners, I'd love for you to kind of talk about that concept of the marketing funnel approach when it comes to hiring and recruiting and how you use it to attract and retain all sorts of frontline staff.
Sure. Yeah. I think I like to use the term marketing funnel because it's relatable across other areas of the business. We're not talking about something new, something that we're not already doing. And most importantly, we're not already measuring. And when you think of a marketing funnel, instantly it goes to measurement. And I think that's what's really important in leveraging the term marketing funnel.
Yeah.
And we're going to use it in the recruitment side because first what we want to do is we just want to increase the top of the funnel. How do we get the most people raising their hand and say they're interested in a job with us? And from there, how are we attracting those individuals? So we talked about it, right? A job board is certainly one way of attracting someone to an open position. The second way that we see is your own career site. How many of us lack the ability for individuals to raise their hand and apply online for an open position? Now, we could get into that topic. It's a deeper discussion. I think we will later on. So I'll park there for a moment. The third thing is, how do we leverage our existing employees or our existing network to drive individuals? And it's referrals. Every operator I talk to says, yes, I have a referral program. Well, we pay $500 for a referral. They get it, 50% day one, the next 50% after 6 months. Okay, how are you measuring it? Well, we don't know. Right? So referrals are such an easy way because good people know other good people.
Yeah.
If your existing employees have a great experience working for you, they want to talk to their friends. Why can't a resident's niece or nephew that's coming to visit them and have a meal with them become a prospective employee with us? So some things that I've seen to drive that top of the funnel again is put a career center in your dining area and have an open computer with a big sign that says career center, because that's the most common area.
Yeah.
Residents, families, friends will come convene and meet with your residents. So make it really easy and simple to get the word out there that we're hiring, and watch what it does to that top of the funnel. Sure, applicants. And then if you think of the funnel, right, job boards are going to make up the highest number of applicants. Your career site will probably be on the lower end of that, maybe about 10 to 15% of your applicants, while career sites will make up about, 60%. So then that remaining 30%, supplement it with referrals, but watch what happens to the numbers of your hires. What you're typically going to find is 60 to 70% of your hires will only come from 30% of your candidate traffic. And that's where the game becomes a quantity, or that's where the recruiting process, and that's where the recruiting process becomes a quality game instead of a quantity game. And you get to hold the upper hand and really work with individuals that match the roles and responsibilities of your open positions.
The visual you paint is great. Well, one thing that I'm curious about is, I've definitely talked to operators and tried to work with operators around their use of social media and their branding in being able to recruit and drive engagement and bring awareness to what they're doing. And so from what you've seen and kind of thinking about the various aspects of the marketing funnel, how does that employer branding, whether it's social media or other, kind of play a role in recruitment? And what should operators do to kind of improve their image to be that employer of choice?
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
It's really interesting. I think social and your web presence is everything. We publish an applicant study here at Hireology twice a year. And our most recent applicant study was published last summer. Anyone who's interested, I'm happy to share with your listeners. So feel free to reach out to Aaron, and we could pass that along. Definitely. And what our research shows in the senior living healthcare space, on average, an applicant will look at 12 career sites before applying for a job. So that means your applicants are shopping you online before they say they're interested. So take a moment right now, everyone listening, go take out your phone and apply for a position at one of your communities. How easy is it to apply on your mobile device? And what do you learn? What message do you send to that prospective applicant about how you treat your people? Do you share what career paths are like? Do you share what their benefits they get for coming to work at one of our communities? Or are you just saying, we need some cooks, here's a job description, apply, and hopefully we reach back out?
Just the visual of that, right? Like pulling up the phone and going through it. And it's like, oh, that's just another job and just another paycheck. I definitely know from experience that can be a hard hill to climb when you're trying to get the best and the brightest.
Yeah, the one thing as operators we have absolute 100% complete control over is who we put on our payroll. No one else decides that.
Yeah.
So leverage the individuals you have working at our communities who love coming to work every day, believe in our mission, love our residents, to help you attract other great people. And that's what your career brand allows you to do.
I've always seen this kind of concern, if you will, about balancing the idea of letting employees be on social, talking about what they do, and talking about their community, their place of employment, and balancing that with the consistent messaging. Do you find that the successful operators struggle with that, or are they just more willing and open to let their employees say all the good things and maybe deal with the negative here and there? What do you see when it comes to something like that?
Sure. I think in social today, we have access to so much more information today than we did 5 years,
Yeah.
10 years ago. So throttling what's said, I think is the wrong message. What I see great operators do is they respond to information that's out there and they don't hide behind it. We have Glassdoor. If folks aren't familiar with what Glassdoor is, think of it like Yelp for jobs.
Yeah.
And, it's okay if you have a negative review. Everyone gets a negative review. What you need to be prepared is if it comes up in an interview with a prospective applicant, how do you respond to that message?
Yeah.
Hide behind it or do you own it? And I think great operators own it in all aspects of what they do. And most importantly, the last thing you want to have happen, you go through this arduous interview process. You're spending a lot of time, a lot of money, you find the right person, and then they go home after day one and they start scratching their heads and they come home to their significant other and they say to themselves, what does that place got going on? Right?
Yeah.
So the more open and honest we are in the interview process, the less that's going to happen. And that's how you make day 1 through 30, 30 to 60, right? All those days great. And I think that's what we're all fighting for.
Yeah, and so much truth to that. I have so many flashbacks of recruitment and hiring where that was so true. Even for myself personally, where I'm like, did I make the right call here? And so that transparency can't be overemphasized. Well, one of the other things we're talking a little bit about social media. So it makes me think about how we balance technology and that personal interaction, because obviously the interview process can't all be done, digitally, video like this. You got to have that personal touch. So how do you recommend they balance those things in the process to make sure that you have a human touch, but also you do have that efficiency, because we've got a lot of applicants we're dealing with?
Yeah. There's a couple of different areas that technology is really good in the hiring process to automate certain things. First, table stakes process. Folks need to be able to apply online. If you're not giving people the ability to apply online, you're not going to have the ability to choose applicants to select from. I think that's just table stakes in the industry today.
Yeah.
Second is SMS. SMS is, only about 12% of organizations today have a fully adopted SMS process. I think that SMS is a really great way to automate after someone applies. How do we engage them in the interview process?
Yeah.
Do we automate thanking them for their application? Can we automate through SMS the ability to then schedule interviews? So scheduling interviewing is another great place for automation. Do you make it really easy and simple for the applicant to select the time on your calendar for an interview? So think of a Calendly link.
Yep.
Instead of going back and forth via email and you're busy, it's just wasted time. And then third, we hinted at this a little bit, but the onboarding process. Organizations need to have a fully automated onboarding process today. And that's everything from license documentation and collection of information all the way through gathering I-9, W-4, and your traditional payroll paperwork.
Yeah.
I look at onboarding as a great way to bridge the gap between the time I give someone an offer and the time they start. And that's a great barometer for your team to use. Maybe I should call Corey. Start date's tomorrow, but I don't have any of his I-9, W-4 information. Something's not right here.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about, the onboarding process. I always tell people that -14 is a very important number. And if people always look at me weird, like, what do you mean by -14? I go, it's the 14 days before they start with you, right? Like, how many different touch points do you have? Are you communicating with them? Like gathering documents, even giving them a picture of what a day looks like, or, hey, here's what the training is going to look like. Do you want to get a head start on it? Whatever it might be. I think it's so important because you're right. Like, do I lose them? Because I've seen operators get ghosted when they think they've got a position filled and they don't talk to them for 10 days. And when they give the call the day for, hey, when are you coming in? Oh, sorry, I took a job elsewhere. And I always wonder, is it because of the engagement in those 14 days?
Absolutely. And when, it's very easy to say I have an onboarding process, but do you also make it easy for the applicant? So do we force people to have to fill this information out in front of a desktop? Or is our onboarding process, can it be done via mobile? There's a theme, right? You've heard me say this a couple of times. Shop yourself online. Everything's headed mobile. So how easy is it for applicants to do things on their mobile device? Just put yourself in the applicant's shoes. Go through your own process. It's the best way to know where you stack up.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey, as we wrap up here, I'd love for you to share a few strategies that organizations can implement to improve retention rates for their frontline staff, especially when you think about like food service and senior living. What are 2 or 3 strategies that our listeners can take away about improving retention?
Absolutely. I mentioned onboarding, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. I'm a big believer in a good onboarding process drives retention. One big thing that is on our managers is 30, 60, 90-day reviews. I love 30, 60, 90-day reviews because it's on the new hire to tell you what their goals are.
Yeah.
And now as a manager, you know exactly what's important to them. So I think it's really important that your 30, 60, 90-day review should be new hire driven, not goals that you have as a manager for your new hire. Second is flexible scheduling, especially for food service.
Yeah.
How easy do we make it for someone who wants to go to their child's softball game or gymnastics meet to say, can I work a Saturday instead of this Thursday night? Are we flexible?
Yeah.
Really critical here, especially in the food service area of our communities. And then third, and certainly not least, actually, in my opinion, one of the most critical areas is career pathing. Do we make it really easy and simple to highlight what our career paths are at our communities? Mm-hmm. So I know I get hired in as a cook. Where can I go from here? And if you don't have career paths identified, what I want you to do is think about the last person that got promoted to a management position. What was their process at your community? Because that's your career path. And one of my favorite stories in the space, there's a representative at one of our partner companies, Watermark Retirement Communities, Brian Schachtner. And Brian actually started as a wellness initiative coordinator
Okay.
and worked his way up, and he's now the chief investment officer of Watermark. Because what they cared was, though he started in wellness, that's not what Brian was passionate about. But Brian was passionate about the senior living space. Let's find an avenue and a path that make our people excited about work every day and work with them. And that's a career path. And telling that story in your career site, imagine what it does for a prospective applicant that's an entry-level position, understanding where they possibly could go within the organization.
Yeah, I love that because I think so for me, so often like food service and hospitality focused positions kind of get siloed. And it's like, oh, well, if you're a server or a cook, then you'll stay in the kitchen and maybe you'll be the executive chef, or maybe you want to be the executive director or the business office person or a regional director or a regional nurse. So what you're saying makes so much sense. That career pathing is critical. So well, Corey, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about recruitment and retention and hiring. I'd love for you to share with the listeners how they can reach out and learn more about Hireology and your processes, and maybe even talk to you about working with you in the future.
Absolutely. Hireology could be reached at hireology.com. You could find me on LinkedIn, Corey Fein. It's Fein is my last name. So my email is just cfein@hireology.com. And I'd be more than happy to talk deeper on any topics that we discussed today, or if you have any interest in learning more about how our technology could impact your community.
Perfect. Again, Corey, thanks so much. This was a great conversation, and I can't wait for the listeners to hear it. So thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thanks, Aaron.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.